a lot of people would, particularly intellectuals or materialists, would basically call this talk which I'm giving today fantasy, is because this is the only point of reference which they have is really the intellect. Now the intellect is not the true mind. The intellect is basically a faculty of the mind, so to speak, and without the deeper understanding and connection to divine spirit or the divine soul itself, we really cannot relate to them. Or what we can really say is to ask them to go deeper inside themselves and to perhaps understand the deficiency of the personality nature in its inability to be able to perceive that which is beyond the personality nature, so to speak. For that we need much deeper faculties which are lying latent within our consciousness and within our hearts. And once we reconnect and, how should I put it, once we reconnect and re-establish our true divine connection, then we are interfacing on a much deeper level with reality. Now those who are just merely materialists or intellectual scientists, so to speak, they perceive the world from their own relativity, that of the personality itself. And that is in fact a massive distortion. And when we say a distortion, it means that the relativity that we draw is only through our past experiences and imprints which have been governed by the outward life, so to speak. Rather than having the, you could say, opening up the inner sanctum and being able to achieve or resonate with much deeper realities and much deeper, you could say, soul perceptions, which are really lying beyond the personality nature. Yeah, first and foremost is that the subtleties of nature only reveal themselves to those who are truly inwardly connected, and it's really important for humanity to understand its situation at present. When people view nature, they're viewing from the self, so to speak, the personality angle. And depending upon how their personality is constructed is how their differing perceptions of what nature is or what their so-called life is. But most are just referring to the form life itself. Understanding our inner realities is first and foremost, because until we actually have reconnected with our true sense of divine beingness, it's almost impossible to understand the deeper processes which are going on around us. And when I mean the deeper processes, again, I mean beyond the form life, which we see visibly before us. This is just Maya. This is just an illusion. But the consciousness of the Mother herself, Mother Nature, if you would say that, the spirit of Mother Nature, wants to inherently assist us to open and to reconnect with our fundamental reality, so to speak. And what we see externalized to us is not that fundamental reality. It's an inner process. And what is really important is that people must first come to understand their disconnection. Now, this is going to be a bit hard for a lot of people, because understanding our disconnection implies that as a race we have no real connection with spirit at this time. And what I mean by that is that the vast majority of people out there have not really come to know their own innate processes to understand and reconnect with that divine soul. And that divine soul is what is our true reality, so to speak. It's our deeper inner reality, which likes to express itself through the personality nature, out through form. But until we've reconnected with our inner divine self, then it is almost impossible to really understand the deeper processes of Mother herself, so to speak. One of the great problems with humanity at this time is that a lot of people are trying to save the earth, and when they talk in terms of saving the earth, they're still coming from a materialist angle or a personality angle. So in essence, they haven't really gone inward enough and cleared that space necessary to receive. But what they've done is gone on these missions of love and light and saving the planet. And when we're coming from the personality, what we're really coming from is fear. And fear and ignorance as to what you could say Mother Earth wants us to express or wants us to integrate from her intelligence. You see, very few people ask, what does Mother want? You see, it's always, what do we want? How do we perceive this reality? And in doing so, we shut ourselves off from the livingness of life itself and dancing and working with it, but bring it down to our own mundane perceptions and experience, which at this point, particularly for the vast majority of humanity, is very closed. So, when people try to assist the earth and save the earth from the personality self, and I'm not saying that we should not make our best efforts, because this is part of it, but we must really look deeper and must really fundamentally reconnect with the Divine Spirit itself, and thus, through that process, is step out of mind and transcend these mundane realities to really embrace and receive the livingness of life itself, so that it expresses through us, so that we can then integrate and share that vaster, deeper intelligence which is all around us. Now, our modern civilization, when we look at it, I'm particularly talking to an audience perhaps in France. Now, in our concrete jungles, such as our urban areas, such as Paris, how few people have actually spent time, like constant time, in nature. And I would like to point out that recently, in a trip when I was in Peru, as we're heading towards the Amazon jungle, so to speak, is that when I was, you could say, at the entrance to the jungle, that we took a little bit of time out to sit there and to really ask nature herself to invite us in. And as soon as we did that, the living organism, which is the Amazon jungle, invited us in. It was literally an invitation through our inner reality. We could actually hear the jungle sigh and give a sigh of acceptance. And as soon as we then entered, it was a slight but perceptible change into how we were then integrated into its reality. Now, most people from an urban environment going to a jungle or a desert or a natural environment, they'd just be stomping through with no real connection, immersed in their own thought forms and their own troubles and their own reality, so to speak, not really taking time out to really ask, the place where they're at, will you accept us? Yeah, Mother herself, in reference to the spirit of Earth, Mother Earth herself, again, a living spirit which we can actually talk to, which we can actually experience in terms of our interfacing with her through our innate trust and through our innate knowing, which comes from that silence inside, that very few people actually understand, that we can actually interact with her consciousness and integrate with her consciousness. In fact, we should be integrated with her consciousness. You see, this is who we are as human beings. We are an aspect of her, but we've taken it to such a point of rupturing and fundamental disconnection that we're no longer able to hear her anymore. And again, many people would call this fantasy, but it is not. I've sat with many teachers over the years, and these teachers have a very deep rapport and a deep integration with her, and sharing her reality within myself and being able to, you could say, interact with her on the level in which we do. Slowly we understand and find that if we hold that sense of sacredness for her, that slowly she wants to give us so many gifts and slowly reveal her true nature. Her true nature is that of a deep love and a deep longing for humanity to return to her and return to our true innate essence, so to speak, in terms of our fundamental reconnection. So we really must go inside first, and this is what is so important. Once we go inside and we really understand our own selves, our own personality natures, then we're able to transcend it through our innermost being and reach that point of reconnection with the divine soul and spirit. And in doing so, as we reintegrate that, we'll find that Mother will reveal more and more of herself to us. And through that process, she will share these knowledges and understandings with us that we would not even perceive, locked in the personality nature of even being able to understand or perceive, what she really has to offer to us. And with that reconnection, we will come to share, you could say, the bounties of Earth. I mean, when we talk in terms of the transhumanist movement, I mean, here we are as a society really going head fast into this inorganic reality without really understanding ourselves as human beings from a divine perspective or a divine sense, and not really understanding our very planet which we're on. Now, wouldn't it make more sense to know ourselves first before telling humanity or guiding humanity into an abyss of inorganic reality and synthetic culture? It would make more sense for us to really understand ourselves and what Earth really is and her love for us first before really trying to push our way into what we would call a technocratic society, which again relies on just mere materialism and intellect. A deeper form of disconnection. And as a collective race, we are finding ourselves rupturing further and further from her processes and from her intelligence and understanding. And this goes also with the deeper spiritual life, which she is integrated with as well. Our deeper divine connection, I see constantly people out there, they've forgotten to trust the processes of life. They're too busy trying in the personality to grope around in the dark with no real understanding of where they are at, and trying to use their lower minds to dominate this reality in fear, misunderstanding, and through identification with their personality nature. They're looking out into the world and it's becoming very claustrophobic, almost like a coffin which they've been shut into. So this is why it is imperative to really take that step back and to empty and to still, go within to that place of silence within and turn upwards. Once we reconnect with that divine spirit, then everything else will follow from that. When I connected with the tobacco plant in South America, it was quite an amazing experience, because when I was lying out in the jungle, we would actually have, guided by a South American master at the time, we would have various plants come to speak with us within our deeper consciousness. And one of the first ones to come to me was the tobacco plant. And when it came, it had a very powerful and beautiful and benevolent presence. Now, as we come to understand the history of tobacco, particularly from the westernized point of view, that you could understand that most people would say, no, that's not true, or, we understand tobacco to be a poison. But of course, what the great spirit of tobacco showed us was how it had been manipulated, and how it had been manipulated for humanity's own purpose, to make money from, to mix with poisons. And it showed me the whole history of what had been done to subvert it. A very beautiful plant spirit, and also a purifier, to turn it into its complete opposite. And this is where we see the personality, or the collective world ego, utilizing a spirit, or utilizing a plant which could really assist us on our journey of awakening, to bend it and to use it as a technology for harming self and for harming others. And this is what perhaps these elite companies and elite people have capitalized on, so to speak. But what I would like to bring out through explaining this is that when we come with a sense of sacredness, and when we come with that inner reconnection to Spirit and Mother herself, that we will find that so many things that we have thought as detrimental, or that we have thought as even good or positive, to be turned around. And this is the beauty of Spirit, is that the personality tries to constantly equate and balance its own relativity and assert its own understandings over the environment, to draw and use our organic technologies, to suit our own purposes and our own understandings, not realizing that the deeper potentiality of our natural environment and the plants which we engage with comes from our ability to truly open and to surrender to Spirit, and to interface with Mother Earth on a much deeper level, to have those same plants and those same realities then given to us with right understanding, right technique in terms of how to utilize. To share, Mother Earth will share her bounties and beauty with us, that we can use these technologies in such a way to help uplift the human race and help to reintegrate what we always are beyond this form, fallen life, so to speak. There are other many plants out there which are, you could call, teacher plants. And when we start to really understand that behind the form reality, the chemistry, the biology, so to speak, is that we can actually integrate and connect with the spirit of the plants around us. And this must be done through our stillness, through our sacredness, through our invitation for the greater life to work within our hearts and minds, so that it will then reveal to us its secrets. When we're able to do that, then you could say a veil gets taken off, and then the livingness of nature, the livingness of Mother, the Mother Spirit herself, opens to us. And if we open more to her, then slowly that reciprocal relationship builds. And as it builds, and as we take into our hearts and minds her intelligence and what she wants for us, in terms of that, then we also play a part in her deeper awakening reality as well.
I suppose that's why in a way you can't really have these teacher plants, or nature can't really reveal our secrets and our tools to most humans, because as you were saying with the tobacco, if it was the case, most humanity itself and whoever controls humanity would actually utilize it and twist it to its own means.
Well, yeah, think about how we already view nature and how we look at nature from our urban environment and our modern so-called society perspectives, is that we have no integration or no real connection with nature, and this is a very sad fact. But from the angle of someone who has opened deeper to the deeper spirit and mysteries of Gaia and life itself, is that humanity is showing a very sickened and twisted variation of life. It's one which is not connected. So everything which we then utilize from our surrounding environment is for self. And again, I'll continue to come back to self, 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 because this personality nature is the distortion, you see. And this is why it's so important to know thyself and come to understand our personality nature, so that we can transcend it. Because I'll give an example. It was only a couple of years ago, in talking with an Indigenous lady from Australia, where she revealed a various plant where you could say it was a herbal cure for cancer, and many Indigenous people from around the world and from our own country, Australia here, have such cures. But again, it's treated with sacredness and respect, and with a deep integration and a deep interfacing with the spirit of Mother herself. Now, in that process, it was, in revealing that, it was almost a form of test, because a few of us went out and we said, oh, there is a plant here which can assist curing cancer. Now, what a few people did, because in our modern society, a lot of people are getting cancer more and more. This is due, to the fact that we ourselves have become a cancer for the planet. Our engaging with synthetic realities and, in terms of our lifestyle and our livingness, so to speak, in terms of meshed within this society, so to speak. We've become a cancer. So more and more people are actually themselves embodying cancer within them. So when a few of these people who had many friends dying of cancer or were afraid of cancer found that there was a plant that could perhaps assist to cure them, again, when we say cure, it's more than just a plant which is necessary. It's a complete change and reconnection to life, which will really undo the disease which we have inside, so to speak. But when they found this out, they went around the countryside, particularly around my small hometown here, and started ripping out plants from everywhere. So without no thought of the cycles of nature, of when to pick it, how to pick it, without no real understanding, it was just break the land again, utilize it for self, and seek a biological or chemical way, a biological chemical way of being able to treat it without the inner change first. And so by tearing up, hundreds and hundreds of plants around, these people thought they were doing a good thing, trying to assist the people around them, to cure cancer. But really, they were only damaging the earth more, not really understanding the processes that that plant needs to go through to grow. Without the sense of sacredness, is that why should we just tear up an entire area? Shouldn't we leave some behind? So when we're talking about the modern societal mind, is that because we've become so disconnected and unintegrated from the spirit and the respect and the disciplines of nature as well, that in the end, I would say, of course, most indigenous people are going to hold back that knowledge because we ourselves are not worthy of it. So until we really take heed and build that gentle, that strong disciplinic nature, that disciplinic nature within ourselves, so that we can work and assist and utilize nature in the right way, with the right method and the right means, then I would say we are not worthy of receiving Mother Earth's bounties. And that was a great lesson to learn, because I look out today and we can see with modern agricultural systems how we're just used to raping and taking from the planet. You see, and this is so embedded in our mindset. There is nothing to be put back in our modern mindset. There's no respect for the processes of nature. So I've really got to say to people is to take time to reflect and look deep and ask, instead of trying to go out there and trying to find natural methods, again, coming to the point, unless we've reconnected with the divine spirit within ourselves first, that even trying to assist the earth or others from the personality angle, which is only doing it from a point of reference to intellect or a survival capacity, is only going to end us in an imbalanced reality. You see, and this is what we've got to learn. When we start to reconnect with the divine soul and spirit of things and life itself, then we're not so in survival mode. We remove the fear from the core of our hearts, and we are then offering ourselves up to the processes of life and learning to dance with her. Those today who do feel that call within their hearts to go beyond the personality, reality, so to speak, I would tell people to trust in that call. Because through that, through seeking truth, through coming to understand our own nature, through trusting that innermost voice of silence and slowly learning to express our intrinsic reality, out into the physical, then what we see is that this is the process, the great alchemy, which we should all be engaging with in this time. Again, the transhumanists, what they call alchemy, so to speak, is a fallen, decrepit alchemy, which is engaged with synthetics and the form life, so to speak. But the true alchemy is that of blending our inner natures down here and reconnecting with the divine spirit itself. So for those people who find themselves trapped within an urban environment where they're unable to connect more subtly with nature or deeply with nature, that they still have their own innate reality from within, and as they unfold and trust in that, then that will reconnect them up. Of course, when we have the opportunity to spend time in nature, we should, and we should take time to sit in silence out there and slowly bring about a sense of sacredness and appreciation for every little thing around us, and really understand the laws of economy. This would be a first and foremost step in the right direction. That when we talk in terms of laws of economy, is that we only utilize things as we truly need them. The earth is not around us to satisfy our wants. It's there to slowly assist us in our true innate processes of awakening, and thus slowly gifting each other with the greater blessings of spirit. You see, when we come to understand that, we take only what we need. When we look at our modern civilization today, the masses of suburban houses and the urban centers, cities, and the luxuries of so-called the Western society, what we've really seen is that inherently, if we have stepped off that true economic law of only utilizing things for what we need, we step out into obtaining and looking outwards and identifying with the personality nature, taking only for self, trying to cushion the self, trying to affirm the self in our external environment through luxury, through vanity, through all these twistings of our true innate nature, so to speak. When we do that, we of course will have a sickened society. You see, so really, I would have hoped that with the changes of the earth and with the ongoing, you could say, environmental problems and the awakening which is happening, is that more people would engage in letting go, undoing, taking less, really looking around and respecting every little gift that nature has to offer, because it's here for us, truly, in terms of spirit. You see, but what they've done is that they've shoved that aside and they've unleashed the beast, so to speak, inside themselves, and it's now constantly attaining for self, which is a security in this physicalized environment for the personality nature, which affirms its own nature, so that eventually they can no longer hear the innocent, sweet voice of life inside themselves. And in doing so, they fall deeper and deeper, and really you're calling out into the wilderness these days is because so many people, I can sit here and talk about reconnecting with life and love, divine love and nature itself, but people are so immersed in their everyday problems and realities that they're unable to really understand or hear. For them it's a nice thought, so to speak, what I'm saying, not realizing or not being able to actually integrate perhaps the potentiality of what I'm expressing through this talk today. You see, and the trouble is, once from our personality natures we project out into our environment and affirm our realities in such a way as what we're doing collectively on the earth at this time, is that when we do that, is that we also come under deeper influence from external authorities. You see, people worry and they start to see this ever-growing oppressive reality existing around us, but they themselves are further disconnecting themselves from their inner reality and from nature and life itself. So in doing so, they don't really want to engage their true intelligence. They want others to think for them. They just want to go and feed themselves as much as possible, So of course, the mirror of life itself really reflects externally this ever-growing external authority constantly bearing down on us, trying to create its order. You know, and in terms of the soul, this would be almost antichrist. You see, because when we're working in with life and with our own innate natures, we are freeing ourselves from our material natures, from our form life, from our personality natures. We're coming to understand who and what we really are, which is not at this level of reality. But when we turn away from our intrinsic realities and from our spiritual nature and we engage the physical, so to speak, we become more and more lost and immersed in the maya, the illusion of this world, which enables certain entities and realities out there to gain dominance over us, you see. A lot of people, it's a sad fact that a lot of people think by immersing themselves in this materialistic society that they're gaining freedom. They're only gaining freedom from a personality angle to buy what they want. In the end, buying what they want is just stuffing themselves and holding on to the form process. They're not actually gaining anything, really. You know, it's that great fundamental reversal which is necessary to actually really engage with life processes to let go of the physical material reality and have life slowly work within us in that great alchemical process to draw us up to our true reality, and then we understand what life really is.
And then we can work with nature.
Then we can work with nature, yes. Yes, when we start to understand the livingness of the mother herself, the sacred mother herself, and how she wants to assist us in our processes to reintegrate back to the divine life itself, is that when we give up our own ways of trying to manipulate our environment around us and we start to reconnect with her, then she fundamentally will come to meet us with her intelligence and her love and slowly show us and untangle us from this mess that we're in. And this is very important. The Native Americans knew, all indigenous cultures knew it. Back in our own roots, so to speak, that we ourselves still share that knowledge within our deep biology and within our deep cellular memory. And this is really what we've got to reactivate. But we reactivate this again through engaging with her. She would love to bring more and more of her energies and her spirit into our own collective life. But in doing so, we must really be receptive to her. And this reception is what's really important. Receptive does not mean open to everything, so to speak. It means a deep level of discernment as to accept where energies are truly coming from. As we engage with our divine soul and our divine inner life more, then we will get that energetic discernment. And this is part of the process for us all. Now, engaging in this process is not an instant thing. Our society always has us wanting instantly gratified, that we can go this process of reintegration back to life, so to speak. I'm talking in terms of the collective here, is that we can just, hook in and go for it, so to speak. When we've come to understand that every day what we do matters and what we do counts, what we connect with, how we connect with each other. Once we start to really go deep and learn that deeper responsibility and then slowly connect back up to the divine life itself, then she will engage in that process. Our deeper divine soul, you could call it Christos, will also engage in this beautiful alchemical process internally within us all to slowly take away the karmas and energies that we've created in defiance of the Great Spirit itself. So slowly undoing, and this is the process, is learning to become more and more discerning, more and more empty, more and more aligned with the deeper spiritual reality that we ourselves are at a certain point, but we've ruptured because of our identification with the personality nature. We reintegrate the true process, and then the living book of life itself opens up. She is a living library, and she wants to share with us her knowledge. And we ourselves must learn to discern what is false, what is real. in terms of our spiritual reality, because there are a lot of people out there engaged in so-called spirituality out there, but they haven't really integrated the deeper processes, and this is where also so much trouble is coming from. They themselves have engaged from a mystical, glamorized version of spirituality. They talk about nature spirits, and they talk about fairies or whatever, but without really, it's still an idealistic or glamoured process. You see, so what they've actually done is actually, deluded so many. Again, it's the self trying to exert itself to capitalize, for its own comfort or its own relativity, to secure itself in this reality, not really giving up self, which is the true process, to slowly allow the divine to slowly weave its way down and undo our reality down here, and thus share, and so we can find our true humanity again. And this, our true humanity, which is at the level of the divine soul, is not the humanity which we see before us today in terms of the world ego and the collective reality which we share. Unfortunately, that is so, where particularly when we see with movements such as transhumanism, is that yes, we've actually now are defiantly acting against nature. We're now converting and utilizing and using nature specifically for our own self-delusions and wants, this on an individual level and on a collective level. So unfortunately, it's a form of augmentation, or you could say theft even, of nature's own biological processes, utilizing it for our own needs and wants. And this has happened many times before in history. Don't think it's just our civilization which is going through it. Many civilizations back over thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years have done the same thing. And I can say this because some of us have deep encodings and memories of realities far beyond our present civilization, so to speak. So our organic reality and our organic technologies can either be a gift from spirit, which we dance with spirit so that they assist us in the awakening process, or like anything, we can then utilize from self, by self, from our own alignment of the personality nature, to use our organic and spiritual technologies to suit our own collective wants or desires. And this is what we see happening today. The transhumanist reality, without having really open forums and discussions, because I have not seen any yet, except for a few exceptional speakers out there, has not really engaged in the processes and understandings of what we are as human beings and our connections to nature and to spirit. They've just assumed this technocratic reality is the way forward, you see, but they don't really understand, because they themselves do not possess the inner knowing and knowledge of their own inner reality and spirit and connection to divine spirit. So they've gone very wayward and have sort of run off with these ideals and ways. But I would like to understand that these people, which are leading people in such a direction, are actually, you could call, almost lost souls. And when I say they're not doomed or anything like that, in that essence, I'm not sort of writing them off here, is that their personality and natures, they've become so attached to, or they've identified so hard with, that they're no longer able to hear the call of spirit. And this is what makes it so hard presently, is because some of us can speak to them about the eternal, divine, supernal realities of life and the divine livingness of nature and the spirit of Mother herself, but they would only look upon it as fantasy or delusion from our perspective, because they themselves have disconnected from that. So it's sort of like trying to tell a blind person what colours are in any real external. They cannot perceive or understand, which they have lost. The only thing which I would like to make perhaps clear is, before they start to really impose their technocratic realities and their inorganic realities over the population, which is organic and which is a spiritual reality, so to speak, is that perhaps they open to the possibility of looking at themselves as disconnected and sick and defective, so that they can make true progress at looking in, just to open to that consideration, rather than assume because they have high statuses in societies or university degrees that they are the way forward for the rest of humanity, and making their decisions and their rationale based upon what they perceive the world to be. Because I can tell you now that some of us have a much more deeper and intrinsic connection with life herself, and there's no way that we are going to wantingly refuse what we know as our spiritual potentiality and living reality within us. We would not give that up for their perhaps fallen and twisted perceptions of life, and they're trying to perhaps, you could say, hypnotize humanity and control humanity to such a way so it's forced to engage. And this is why it is so imperative for people and for humanity itself to really take that step back now. Because if we don't, we're going to end up encased in a reality which is so disconnected that there might not be a way back to spirit for a very, very long time. Yeah, we through most people's disconnection from nature, they don't understand that there's a myriad of forms of sentient life out there beyond what we perceive. Now, many speakers talk about the small fractional reality which we can perceive in terms of dimensional space and light from our personality angle, so to speak, is that what we witness within this reality is only a very small spectrum of what is truly going on outside of ourselves. But when people have come to really re-engage with Mother, with life, that these dimensional realities, these realities beyond the mundane, start to really open and to start to interact and interface with us. There are nature spirits, and some of us have had many beautiful experiences with them, and through our own sacredness and approach to life seem to attract those more benevolent spirits within nature and work with them. You see, and there are many, many dimensional realities out there which we can open ourselves to, because we are, in essence, multidimensional. But we will only know this as human beings if we really take the time out to step back and re-engage with the processes of life. We tend to concretize, to make our minds concrete with this personality perception, this fallen perception of what we think reality is and how we view it. So we then seal ourselves off from the multidimensional perspectives of what the earth is, of what life is. And when we start to re-engage with that process of deepening the inner life and coming into contact with those energies and ethers from other realms and other dimensions of the divine life itself, and as they start to permeate through our realities down here, it is sort of like opening a new page of a book, or being open, or the sun coming in that window, and starting to really engage with the more subtle aspects of life itself. And then these dimensional realities, such as nature spirits, such as the angelic hierarchies, really start to make their presence felt. And again, I'm not talking about these new age glamours which are out there. We really have to learn to discern what the divine is and what life is before we assume that because an entity speaks to us, or because we connect with a certain energy which we assume to be a divine reality, we must really have that deeper inner discernment, and that comes through experience, through having the right guides, through really giving all to life, so it will give all back. Sincerity of heart must be there, and the ability to face the illusions and glamours of self, so that when we find that we are open and honest with life, then life is open and honest back with us. And the divine intelligence, which has its own intelligence and its own living reality behind all this form, will start to engage us in such a way that it will help with this discernment process. And as we come through this discernment process over time and space, again, not trying to have the fast fix, not having to try to get everything now, so to speak. It's a process over time. It's an alchemical process over time, which we slowly learn to integrate back. We have to relearn everything. Once we've gone through, some initial phases, and we start to really open to the livingness of nature herself, that when she starts to re-engage, we find ourselves working with realities and beings, sentient beings out there with Earth herself, from dimensional perspectives which we could not even perceive from our very limited and tight personality reality, so to speak. So, then true interfacing with the angelic orders, the divine angelic orders, that is, then starts to take place. And the quickening of our inner realities also start to really, you could say, fire up. And then we're enabled with discernment, with right intent and discipline. Discipline being very important here, because when we are open more to the subtle levels beyond the mundane, it comes with a much deeper sense of responsibility as to how we utilize those energies, how we utilize our time and space in its alignment and its process, rather than our own. So we are really, if we are to be gifted with deeper impulses, and if we are to be gifted with the subtleties of divine life, it also comes with the discipline and expectations that we will utilize the knowledge that we have in the right way and manner. Now, when we look at the vast majority of human beings today, and how they treat the earth, and how they view the earth, and how they view themselves, their self-inflation, self-importance, their egotistical tendencies, we can really see that they're not fit to engage the deeper processes of life. I look at myself and realize it's a very slow process. In some ways it's fast and beautiful and amazing, but unless some of us engage with the deeper disciplines necessary, then it will only cause disaster itself. So there are many realities beyond the 5 mundane senses, and we will be gifted with this understanding only so long as we take the right responsibility and sincerity within our hearts to truly understand what we're engaging with, and hold that sense of sacredness and respect for the processes that we are then engaged in.